So you have an ace as well? Or do you have a queen?
I'm taking
if you
the
have middle
three.
pair?
All I can say is I'm taking the 3.
I'll take the 2, it's fine.
Hey there, welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm Andy, and I'm here with Glenn, Elizabeth, and Ian, and today we're talking The Gang, a cooperative game where we're going on heists using poker hands. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Gang, a game that's going to take the concept of Texas Hold'em poker, but turn it into a cooperative bank heist instead. To get us started, our dealer is going to deal 2 cards to each player. This is your pre-flop hand. Everybody at the table is going to secretly look at their 2 cards without sharing them with anybody else. And now our job at every stage in this round is to try to assess how strong we think our hand is, especially compared with all the other players' hands. If you don't know poker or poker hands, this game's actually perfect for you because it walks you through all this stuff in the rules, and then everybody gets a little cheat card to tell you how strong each different type of hand is. So for instance, my ace and my 8 don't actually represent any special hands except for the high card down here at the bottom, which is the worst type of poker hand. But an ace is the highest potential in that high card category, and my cards are both clubs, which gives me some amount of potential for a flush in the future, meaning all of my cards are the same suit. So as far as 2 card hands go, this one's actually pretty good. And what we're gonna do now is kind of free form start taking the chips that we think represent our ranking among our fellow players. Grabbing the 1 chip means you believe your hand is the worst hand at the table, and grabbing the 4 chip means you believe yours is the best. So I might wait a second or 2 just to make sure nobody's got an amazing pair of cards to start the game or something like that, which would definitely outdo my current hand. But if nobody goes for that 4 immediately, I might actually be willing to take it this round, and I'm going to put that out in front of myself. The one rule about this part of the round is that you're not allowed to communicate anything about your own hand. You can speculate as much as you want to about what other people are holding based on what chips they grabbed or how fast they grabbed them, but I can't tell my fellow players I've got a pretty strong hand, but not an amazing hand. All I can do is grab a chip that represents my guess at what rank I fall in. Once everybody's grabbed a chip, and everybody does need to grab a chip, it's just a way to share with each other the strength of our hands throughout the round from beginning to end, and we're actually not on the line for getting it right until we get to the very end of the round and the red chips. After the pre-flop comes, you guessed it, the flop, which means we're gonna flip 3 cards off the top of the deck, and everybody's hands at the table are considered to include these 3 community face-up cards as well as the 2 face-down cards that you got at the beginning of the round. We're gonna get out the yellow chips for the flop part of the round, and then we're gonna do the same thing, taking the chips we think represent the strength of our hand. So for instance, if somebody at the table had a 4 and a 5 in their hand before, that's actually a pretty darn weak hand until you flip a 6, 7, and 8 into the center of the table, and suddenly you've got a straight, which is huge. That player might have gone from having the 1 to suddenly wanting to grab that 4. For our part, we've got a pair of 8s now. That's actually pretty great, and we've still got that high ace, so unless somebody beat me to it, I'd actually probably still want to grab that 4 because my hand has just continued to get better. The next step is called the turn, when we're going to flip a 4th card into the community row, and we're going to do the exact same thing for the orange chips. There's one thing I haven't mentioned about the chips yet, and that is that just because you take a chip from the middle of the table doesn't mean that somebody else can't have access to that chip. If somebody else had suddenly found themselves with a really strong hand based on what just came up, and I beat them to that 4, they could instead choose to take that 4 from me because they think their hand is so unbeatably strong. The same goes for any chip on the table, so if somebody's hand is just abysmally weak, they could be taking that 1 away from somebody else if they need to. And lastly, we're going to complete the river by flipping 1 more card. And now that we've reached the red chips, our choices matter. Once those tokens are locked in and we all feel like we've got the correct rank in front of us, we're all going to reveal our hidden hands and see how we did. If we get everybody at the table in perfect rank order, meaning everybody had the correct chip in front of themselves, that's when we get to flip one of these vault cards. However, even a single chip being out of order means that we've failed the heist for this round, which means we're instead going to flip one of these alarm cards. And at the end of each round, we flip 1 card and then start a new round. If we can flip 3 vault cards before we flip 3 alarm cards, we win, but if we hit that 3rd alarm card first, then we lose. Alrighty, so we just sat down to our first game ever of the gang, and we had 4 players today, and thank goodness, because 4 seems like the perfect number of players for this game. You've got just enough difference in your hands and just few enough chips that it's not too hard to decide where you're gonna fall in the ranking between 1 and 4, but it's not going all the way up to like 6 players where you have to find the subtleties between your hands and pick 4 instead of 5, things like that. And then with 3 players, this game would be delightful. It would be a little bit on the easier side, but I still think it would be a really fun exercise in just, trying to rank yourself and see how good your hand was every round. And it says it takes 20 minutes on the box, and that's correct. You could play this game in less than 20 minutes, I think, if you played it a lot and you were just really in the rhythm of it. But even our first game today, where we went to the maximum number of rounds you can have to play in a game, probably took us 25, maybe 30 minutes.
I just like the entire concept of it. I like when they take what is very much an aggressively competitive game and they say, we're going to make this co-op. It does put a little twist of how you interact, because there is no bluffing. There is no trying to force someone to fold or tricking someone to fold, none of that stuff. This is your tell. Your chip is your tell. And you kind of have to rely on that because you can't say anything else.
The interesting thing was, like, I've never played poker. So, I mean, I've seen poker on TV. I've played Yahtzee, like, one time. But this game was entirely about building poker hands and assessing, you know, the value of that poker hand relative to the other people. And did I do super well at first? No. But the game was super forgiving of that and still really enjoyable, because we're really just manipulating, you know, that concept of building and assessing that poker hand. And it was super fun without having any pressure of, like, losing money or losing face or anything. So it was a good time. I have a flush.
Oh.
I have a flush.
Yep, great. You hit the flush. Nice.
We got a second
Good job.
Boom.
Nice. I did not put you on the flush. That's awesome.
I know poker now.
I'm glad that you. You would have
downloaded
taken
poker.
a load of my money in a real poker game on that hand. Yeah, I'm a pretty experienced poker player. I started playing poker when I was in high school, and I've played pretty much my whole life now. And I found it super enjoyable as well. The speculation on what potential hands and what people had and how they ranked them from powerful to less powerful or more powerful throughout the series of the game between the flop, the river, and the turn was really, really interesting to see how people were able to self-assess by taking the chip correctly or incorrectly, and then being able to take the chip from another player when you thought your hand was stronger or weaker than them allowed you, as Glenn said, to show your tell of where you think your hand ranked.
And I really like this game as a tool for experienced poker players to get their friends into poker who would not play with them otherwise. I think that's a problem a lot of poker players have, is if they don't have a regular group and they're just trying to get their friends to play with them because they watch it all the time and they're just kind of like dwelling on it all the time. This is a really easy way to get your friends to the table and go, I'm not going to take your money. You're just going to learn stuff about poker hands and a little bit about, like, you know, watching when the flop comes and keeping it all under wraps, and, you know, you're going to know how to play Texas Hold'em by the end of this. And then, you know, if Ian got us to the table for 3 more rounds of the gang, and then the next time just showed up with a deck of cards and some poker chips and was like, all right, we're playing poker today, we'd probably all be like, okay, yeah, let's try it.
I also think it's interesting for an experienced player to get iterations of poker hands without the monetary loss. Anybody who has played poker before knows that playing without real money or playing without any kind of risk or reward makes you play differently than you would normally play when you're about to lose cash money. So this allows you to get those iterations of playing poker hands without having either a boring game because everybody's betting anyway because none of it matters, or losing a bunch of actual money. So I think it's a really interesting concept when it comes to wanting to play more poker without having the ability to go, all right, I'm willing to lose $100 today. And it fills that void very, very well.
Alrighty, I think that does it for the gang. Thanks so much for joining us. We had a really good time with this one. We hope you had fun watching. And as always, you can hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see our new videos every week when we post those. Check out our online store. The gang is in there, as well as a bunch of other cool games, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.